welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, 18 Hours special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. On the show today, we're taking your calls, your emails as well as social media queries on different aspects of your business. So do stay tuned. We'll tell you how you can reach us later on in the show. Tonight, to answer your queries, I have with me Sanjay Nath, Managing Partner of Bloom Ventures. I also have Rajiv Bakshi, the Senior Advisor of Centrum Capital, and he's also the former ED of the Bank of Baroda. Thank you for your time this evening. Let's in fact kick this show off with a query coming in from Sandeep Chandran. This is a Facebook query. He's written in to ask us, apart from basic factors like product and team, what do investors look for when investing into an MSME, given how much, of course, of the dependence is now on integrating technology into companies? He wants to know if it is an issue if none of the founders have any technical background. So that's a very specific question coming in. I'd like to start with you, Sanjay. A lot of companies write into us saying, we want to know how to integrate technology more into our companies. And here you have a company that's written in saying, how much of an issue is it when it comes to also investing in terms of the partners?
Sure. So, I think it depends on the type of business. If you just segregate, let's say, consumer internet, which is B2C versus B2B, lots of those B2C marketplaces were business or process innovation, not so much technology innovation. But I think more and more the way we look at it, tech can't be outsourced, right? It has to be actually part of the business because it's not a services play, it's a product play. So we like to at least maybe see a CTO or at least a plan to hire somebody senior technically, even if the founders don't have that background. They don't necessarily have to be from IT or BITS, but it definitely helps to have technology. Can't be an afterthought. It has to be part of the plan and how technology is going to be used to scale that business model. So it's very important.
I just want to flip it around and say, when partners or a company is approaching a bank, how much of, and this is specific for the MSME space, how much of the background or the experience of the partners is something that you look at?
If a partner has the technical, or at least one has, so the VC funding, it will be very sure that the technology know-how, which is critical to the success of the venture, will remain. It won't that the key person leaves the place, and then we will lend to for a novel idea which is yet under development or for research and development, only mainly collateral based lending. But having said that, the two things that we look at is projected cash flows and the collateral for such things. Therefore, if not the experience, in some way the skill or the knowledge or an established product area, they have to prove to us that in some way that they will be able to, they have got either skills in marketing, they have got skills in product development, they have got skills in understanding the finance. So all the critical elements have been tied up.
Okay, fair enough. In fact, speaking of hiring, that's what our next query is. This is a call coming in from Ashok Ahuja. Go ahead, Ashok.
My query is, scaling up of an enterprise from a turnover of 1 crore upwards is a very big challenge considering the labor situation. Can you suggest the steps to scale up to the next level? Thank you.
One of the things I would suggest in terms of technology is the key is that unlike services, it takes more capital to build the product. But once you scale up, you don't if you're in Bombay initially and you're trying to open up an office, let's say, or they're looking at irrigation facility in Delhi or Bangalore, you don't need to necessarily set up an office there because the technology itself can achieve it. So what I would suggest is having a good CTO or a head of technology who knows how the technology scales as the business scales. I think one is sales and marketing, right? When you go out and hire people, you may get the orders. But if you have to keep on doubling your staff, then the technology is not doing the job. Unlike services, like in Infosys or Wipro, to often grow 5 times, they have to grow their services or the teams also 5 times. In technology, you can actually grow 5 times just by having scalable technology. So I would actually look at really a senior person who, along with the scale up of the business model, who can also design a technical architecture that scales up as the sales and the customer acquisition change. I'd also, partner with others in that industry because I think that is quite a complex industry. It's a hybrid model. There are offline components also. It's not just like a mobile app that is scaling. So in that case, I might actually not necessarily outsource, but maybe partner somebody else for supply chain or, maybe outsource part of the non-critical technology and then bring it in-house because it's a hybrid model. It's both online and offline.
Okay. In fact, speaking of technology, we have another call coming in. Monish Chopra, and I understand this also relates to technology. Monish.
We basically want to know what's how to do in a startup, how to generate a customers for online business, and that to a specific area if we are targeting.
And not a lot of the MSMEs who write into us understand really how social media works. So maybe we start there, help them understand how they can leverage social media better to be able to grow better and therefore cut down on the marketing costs. Sanjay.
Sure. So again, I think it depends on the type of business. I'll give you an example. We have a company called Glamorous, which actually does women-focused beauty, wellness, and like fashion content. For them, the Facebook page has really worked well because it's very powerful on social media. They can actually put up their content and the videos, and also crowdsource a lot of what you'd call UGC, right? User-generated content. Google, I mean, search engine optimization, SEO on Google is another strategy that tends to work. Very often, I think, typically you can actually hire, well-priced or reasonable digital marketing agency to start with, but eventually need to bring that also in-house because customer acquisition on a tight budget is always an issue, right? So I think initially getting a person who really understands digital marketing, not just marketing, but not in print, but digital marketing is really, really critical to get that bump. And also, I think print is also important in some cases, especially for hiring. I know, like if you're in Maharashtra, in a place like a Pune, for example, sometimes local vernacular papers also work well. So I think we are a fan of hybrid, right? It's not that everything has to be online. I think it's very important that we take the benefits of the offline world also.
But I can only imagine that this comes at a substantial cost for the MSMEs.
It depends. I endorse what Sanjay is saying, but I like to add on the social media, as I know, three things work. Either you create a page and then create likes and therefore that expands, or you put adverts which cost, or you do what is known as SEO, which is search engine optimization. So when somebody looking for say food or travel, then your site pops up among the top ones. So that SEO is free, but then you need to follow the rules of the Google, and then you have to be adding value to the customer.
Okay, so let's talk more about funding. Akshit Tiwari calling in with a query on funding and interest there. Go ahead, Akshit.
Hi, I'm the founder and CEO of Volcantronics. We automate the future by making consumer robots. So my question is, why aren't VCs showing interest towards hardware startups, even though we are heading towards the fourth industrial revolution? Second question is, why don't we see as many successful hardware startups as software startups?
I'm actually happy to say that we've actually funded two, not just hardware, but two robotic startups. I will say it is rare, and we'd love to see more of it. I think part of the problem is, what we call in our industry call a next check writer problem. When we invest in a company, there are different fund sizes, and it's important for entrepreneurs to realize at what stage of funding they're going to, which investor. Every investor has a different thesis, and as a result, imagine a robotics company, right? A VC. How do you evaluate a robotics company? How do you evaluate a market? It isn't there's risk, but that's what venture capitals are supposed to do. I think now it's changing because we have one of our best companies, an interesting company called Grey Orange Robotics, which actually automates warehouses. So it's more a B2B2C. So their clients are the large e-commerce companies. We've done another robotics company that it is for industrial automotive applications. The consumer robots is very interesting. I think we'll see much more of that. Part of the reason has been because the ecosystem is not well developed. You don't have, like BITS Pilani has a robotics lab, but it's not like in the US, like at a Stanford or a Berkeley. So I think that is happening more and more. We're seeing interesting articles where, for example, IIT Bombay startups are saying they're moving more from marketplaces and B2C to product companies, to deep tech product companies, to hardware. So I think we'll see much more of that. It's a trend, and I think it's encouraging that it's a trend. Having said that, I think we're very bullish on hardware, and frankly, we've done a Internet of Things company, also IoT. So we would love to see, and we're actually very active and excited about that new sector. So I think it'll pick up even more.
Would you want to add to that?
Only that one reason, if Sanjay can validate that, could also be that for a hardware company, they have a longer development period before a VC can be excited, because they'll have to have a prototype ready to show something, and it involves cost and more perseverance. Whereas these software things are mainly garage driven. You can sit in a garage, tape a laptop and keep on developing the program, and then you have got something to show at lower cost. Scaling up is where the funding gets involved more, but whereas in hardware perhaps the engineering and therefore you have to develop a prototype that may and maybe not that much of activity, not that much of new ideas. For example, Tesla for badminton would be a great idea for anybody, an electric thing coming here will be a great idea, or robotics for that matter.
Because once you see a working prototype, I think the confidence level of an investor, customer also goes up. One customer testimonial where this robotics application or hardware application has worked will go a long way. Unlike a SaaS company which just has to show metrics, you know, here are 10 companies using a software product. So I think a working prototype would make a big difference to the confidence building.
Great. Let's take another query coming in from Hussein Banu. He's written in to us saying that he has set up an import and export business. Says they're facing huge challenges for creating new accounts to set up the business because banks are asking for municipal proof, which they say they don't have. What would be other alternatives, Mr. Bakshi?
There are strict KYC guidelines from Reserve Bank of India as to what documents are required for setting up a new account. And KYC is a substantial step, not a perfunctory step, because the entire concerns about later on transactions and AML, anti-money laundering, everything applies. But partnership firms, there are standard documents which are prescribed by RBI in their master circular, and banks have got variety of choices. It's not only municipal proof that you require. Suppose it's a partnership firm, is it registered? Then there will be a partnership deed which is registered. It may have an address of the partnership firm. It may have a telephone number registered in their name which has got their address. It may have an electricity bill which sometimes they don't have because the landlord will have the electricity bill in his name. There may be a registered lease deed for the place that they have taken. And sometimes the banks also, of course, they will obtain it in every case. They will obtain the PAN number of the firm, they will obtain the PAN document of all the partners, they will obtain the sometimes the address, recorded address of the partners itself can also be useful. But having created a firm, and particularly in export import, that means you would have registered with the Ministry of Commerce also, or for obtaining the export import license, you will have addresses. But partnership deed, a lease deed with the landlord, a telephone bill, an electricity bill, or if there is a TIN or PAN of the company of the firm also will have a PAN. All those addresses can work for opening an account. This should not be too much of a challenge. Maybe he didn't go to the right bank at the right time.
Alright, let's take a quick break on that note, but don't go anywhere. We'll continue answering all of your queries on the other side. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and we're answering all of your queries which have come into us. Let's answer an email query coming in from Sanjay Malhotra. He's written in to us saying he's a small scale industry manufacturing performance chemicals such as aerosols and home and auto care products. His question today is that there are not enough suitably qualified accredited business consultants available to MSMEs who can help companies like his to overcome difficulties, particularly where challenges of hiring of talent, hiring of partners, and also possibly we can address as well how to raise finance. And I'd like both of you gentlemen in fact to comment on this.
I think you talked about, touched upon two important elements. I think one is hiring and one is business consultants. You know, at Bloom, I think hiring, introductions for funding and customer contacts are the three most important sort of factors for all entrepreneurs. And hiring remains the most important because I think he's also talked about how do you not just attract talent but recruit talent. We have more than 50 portfolio companies today, and the challenge is not just attracting them but retaining them. And this is not just for cash constrained companies. You see what's happening at Flipkart and Unicorn, very well capitalized companies happening there also. So I think there are HR consultants available. I think the key is to see who can engage. How do you engage sustainably with them? For example, I think for VC backed companies, there is a well-known bunch of HR consultants who help. Business consultants can be interesting if you. I think you've got to really, scope out their function well. Are they going to just help open doors, for example, or they're actually going to help close accounts? Thought leadership, I think, a knowledge database and a thought leadership is a very interesting way of selling. So, for example, if this entrepreneur knows the domain really well, one of the things we look at is the consultants can help us have monthly newsletters that go to a distribution group. In the venture capital industry, there is the IVCA. Mr. Arvind Mathur is, a great resource, leads that, and they have a lot of resources. There's obviously TIE, the Indus Entrepreneur Network, that has a lot of resources for tech entrepreneurs that help you find business consultants, can help you even find a co-founder or help you find an advisor mentor. So there are resources.
Okay. Mr. Bakshi, before I come to you, I just have a follow-up question. Sure. In terms of hiring of, business consultants, what about those MSMEs which are not backed by funds? Would you say that it is a cost they still need to take on their books when it comes to hiring of these consultants? How crucial is that going to be?
See, I think if you don't, and again, I want to be very careful that I'm not making a distinction that if you're not VC backed, you're not a good startup, right? That's not. It just depends on the model. I think if you don't have PE or bank or VC backing, I think it's even more important to go to consultants, because part of the role is we also act as those consultants, right? I mean, being a VC, we do much more than providing capital. We are helping, we are mentoring, we are opening doors. So if you don't have a financial partner, it's even more critical. I'd flip the question the other way around. To look at them as a sounding board, to poke holes in your business plan. I think one of the interesting things is that the journey of a CEO is the loneliest, right? Because you're right at the top, and if you haven't built the right culture, none of your employees are ever going to question you. So you need that consultant to ask those hard questions and to poke holes.
So I think the other parts have been well covered. Vis-a-vis funding, I think this is not really a startup in that way. It's a chemicals and aerosols business where the funding is more mainline with the banks. So they can have funding from banks very easily on a business model, and banks provide a variety of funding both for their capital, that is capex needs, as well as for the working capital. I don't know what is the size and scale of this company. But assuming that it is still a small company with low turnover, so banks have got easy ways of providing working capital and working capital assessment. But if you are going to set up a new project, then you have to have certain things ready. For example, a detailed project report always helps. I mean, detailed project report, when we say it has got the basic elements of what do you want to make, where do you want to make, what will be the markets, what will be the production process, who are the key HR resources and things like that. But banks do fund for new machinery, banks do fund for old machinery, banks do fund for working capital. Banks have got very easy ways of assessing working capital for smaller units. So if you have got requirement of only up to 5 crore working capital, straight away 20% of your projected turnover can be given as a working capital. But if you are larger than that, then also there are CMA data, and based on the this is known as a maximum permissible bank finance calculation method. On the basis of that, lending is done. And if loans are still smaller, up to 1 crore, then you have got easier, even collateral free loans are available with guarantee by what is known as CGT MSE. It's a scheme run by SIDBI along with the government, and in that, because they provide 75% cover to the banks, so we don't ask for any collateral from the company. But if it is beyond 1 crore, sometimes the bank may ask collaterals. Many banks will require at least one time the total loan as collateral, which can include the land and building that you have in the company plus something additional to make it at least one time. But bank loans for this type of activity are quite. When it comes to real startups which are working on research and development, which are working on market development, which are working on in creating a lot of intangibles, which will money will go into that and will not create any tangible asset. There banks have got different models.
Okay, let's take in the next query coming in from Harish Lohia. This is a call. Go ahead, Harish.
Myself, Harish, we are manufacturer of bearing and outer components. I want to know more about Startup India scheme. How MSME take advantage of this, and Can presently running industry take advantage of this?
All right. So we haven't spoken about the role of the government and all the schemes that the government has set up so far. And now on the
Now,
startup.
Startup India is a very flagship scheme which was launched by the Prime Minister, I think in January 16 this year. Now, startup, as per my understanding, startup is a much wider platform, and the whole idea is to create an innovation culture and an ecosystem which supports innovation, so that a company like Sanjay's companies and all, they have got much more to incubate for. But in that, they have said that it can be the facilities are not funding in that. The government, what they are providing is easy registration, no inspector Raj, and no taxation for 3 years. But as far as existing or new company, it can be an existing company of less than 5-year vintage, and its turnover should be less than 25 crore till that time to get that benefits. But if you are talking of funding and you are talking of something, you would have heard of, there is a, and I call it, although it is not written anywhere, Stand Up India, which is, to me, is a subset of the Startup India. Stand Up India is a scheme launched specifically to enable 2 loans from every branch of banks in the country, one to an SC/ST and one to a woman. But those loans will be typically for those SC/ST and women may be doing not novel ventures, they may be doing the mainline activities, and they can get loans up to, they can get loans up to 10 lakhs to a crore of rupees, and that will be covered by the guarantee scheme. And if it is a firm, then 51% ownership should be with the woman or the SC/ST, or it should be an individual venture. And there is lot of hand holding in that. NABARD and SIDBI will run a portal. You can go to the portal, answer 9 questions, which will decide whether you are a ready borrower or you are a trainee borrower. If you are a trainee borrower, then there is a lot of hand holding involved. They can connect you to those who provide margin, they will connect you to those who provide skills and skill upgradation. NABARD and SIDBI, we do that hand holding. So there are the bank branches, they are the lead district manager, and there is the SIDBI and NABARD.
Right, I think we've run out of time, but a lot of queries, a lot of interest coming in. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming down and walking all our viewers through really the queries that you've sent in to us. That's a wrap on this edition of Leaders of Tomorrow. We'd love to hear from you. Do remember, you can write into us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT. You can always call us on the number flashing below on your screens. Thanks for watching.